Morning. Probably the negative from the other night was the bad injury that Matt Targett sustained very early in the match. I think I read that you said afterwards that he could barely walk at full time. Have you had a chance to assess it, and how is he?
Yeah, I don't think it looks good, but I think he's having a scan today, so we'll know more then. I think whenever you see a player come off with a hamstring injury, you sort of fear the worst, but let's see when we get the scan.
A couple of players that would normally start that weren't in your matchday squad the other day, Nick Pope and Fabian Schär, were they just rested?
Yeah, Nick's fine. Fabi was just a little bit under the weather, hence why I didn't travel.
I think the draw was made after you did your post-match interviews at Old Trafford. It's another tough one, isn't it? I mean, in Champions League and in the League Cup, you've had some hard draws this season. What do you make of the fact you'll have to go to Chelsea in the quarterfinals?
Yeah, I think the draw sort of falls in line with every other draw that we've had this season. It's been really challenging for us, I think, to go to Stamford Bridge. I think, really difficult assignment. But I think we proved at Manchester United that we can go anywhere and attempt to win, so that won't change.
And how good has it been over the last couple of weeks, and particularly Wednesday, to be able to use your squad and use it so effectively? Because at Wolves, obviously, you were light with attacking reinforcements on the bench. You made a number of changes at Manchester United and gave some players some important time on the pitch during this really intense period.
Yeah, I think it was great to be able to give everyone an opportunity, and I thought they responded magnificently. It was a brilliant team effort. I thought the spirit, determination, collective mindset was of the highest level. Some players who haven't played for a long time thought gave really huge performances. I'm thinking Emil Kraft, 14 months out with a long-term injury. What a return. And also playing at centre-back. So really pleased with him. And there's others. Joe Willock's first start in a long time, and he topped it with a goal. So some really good stories there.
Looking ahead to this weekend, Arsenal come to St James's Park unbeaten in the Premier League. No surprise to you, I'm sure, that they are up there again and presumably once more in the title race. Yeah,
well, I think Arsenal last year, it speaks for itself what they achieved. I thought they were so close to winning the league, and then in the summer I thought they recruited really well. Obvious player who's such an impressive individual and player is Declan Rice, and I think when you add him to their midfield, I think he's got unique qualities. So I think they've moved on from last year, and I think they've mentally moved on from what happened, and I think they've performed very well, as you say, unbeaten. So really big test of our credentials. I think we're looking forward to the game, but Mikel's done a brilliant job there.
You had two good battles with them last season, didn't you? You got a great point in London, and then you lost the home match, but some controversy at the start with a penalty, but you were certainly in that game, weren't you, competing with Arsenal?
Yeah, it's funny, watched that game back in preparation for this one as part of our preparation, and you always watch it back with a different eye, because when you're there and you're watching it back a couple of days later, or at the time you're emotional about the game, and then you watch it a few months later, and I thought we played really well actually, and we were unlucky to lose. I thought it was a really good game between two elite teams, so I think we can take a lot from that game and a lot of confidence from our general performance.
Last thing, there's been a lot of work going on at the training ground over the last year or so. Driving in, it looks as though much of it might have been completed. Has it been finished now, and what sort of shape are your training facilities in, certainly compared to how they were?
Yeah, well, it's transformed. The training ground is in a much better place than it was. I don't think it's totally finished. I still think there's different things going on. But I think the players, who are the most important people, will notice a big difference to their working environment. Now I think they have the environment that matches our ambitions. And I think it's really important they have all the tools and all the things needed to make sure when it comes to a match day they're in the best place possible to perform. So a big thank you to the club for giving us these facilities.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rose. Keith? Eddie, with 7 or 8 players out injured, it feels like you've got a lot of options ahead of this one against Arsenal, given the displays of those that came in on Wednesday night.
Yeah, certainly. We're in a good place mentally after that win. I think the whole squad will be lifted by that performance. I think yes, we're going to miss the players that are out injured. There's no denying that, especially, as I said, I think last week, a lot of those players are in attacking positions, so that leaves us slightly short in those areas. But certainly defensively, with the players that came in, it was great to see the team not affected by the changes. It was a Newcastle performance, which is what we asked for before the game. So testament to those players and their attitudes, really.
And you started Anthony Gordon up front. I know you said to us last week that you bought him with that intention. It looks like you've got that as an option now moving forward. And how does that make your team look moving forward, the fact you can have someone playing so many positions like that?
Yeah, well, I do think it's important in the modern game now that the beauty of Anthony, when we signed him, we knew he could play on the left, on the right, and as a central striker. As I said, he did it for Everton and did it very well. I thought he was really good the other night. I think he linked play well. His movement was good, but his obvious sort of go-to strength is his pace and his athleticism, and I thought that was evident in that position. So I was really pleased with his overall game. And
you touched on Joe Willock a moment ago, but to have him back now, started his first game of the season, Joe Linton looking like he's back to 100% now, your midfield takes on a whole different look now with the running power of those two back and available to you.
Well, they're two massive players, and I think Joe deserves a lot of credit for his performance, because his athleticism and his speed and his general game was there, which after a long absence, it's not always easy to show, but he was making runs in the first minute. He scored his goal near the time when he was going to come off, so I was delighted with that aspect of his performance. So he's a huge player for us, Joe. I'm really pleased he scored as well. That would do him the world of good.
I spoke to him after the game the other night, and he said he knew he was coming off after an hour, I think. So he's like, I'm going to score before I come off, which shows everything about his ability that he can do that.
Yeah, I don't think it's as easy as that. If it was, then I'd be asking for more from him. But no, we planned, and I think it's important that he knew how long he was going to play. So we planned that he was going to play around an hour. And I still thought he looked good at that moment. It wasn't like he looked really fatigued, but I do think we have to be careful with him initially.
And just on Isak, I know you said last week you still weren't 100%. Do you know yet how long he's out for?
Yeah, I think it will be, hopefully he'll be fit for the first game after the international break. But that's still, he's still got a long way to go before we get to that point.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you. Andy? Morning, Eddie. I know I've asked you about tattoo stories before, but this one takes the biscuit. I saw the other night that a fan had tweeted out before the game, if Newcastle win, he'll get a tattoo of a dressing room photo after the game. It just so happened that it was the biggest dressing room photo, I think, of the season. Yeah. But he's been true to his word and going ahead with it. What do you make of that?
Has it been done?
Not yet. It's in the pipeline, apparently.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not sure what to say to that. Yeah, so he did that in thinking we weren't going to win, or?
Apparently, aye. He maybe, I don't know if lack of faith is the right way to put it, but given the lineup and given the test.
Well, I'll have a permanent reminder to that night. So let's look at it as a positive. It's a positive night for the clubs, and he'll have a positive reminder of it.
On the football, 14 different scorers I was reading so far this season for Newcastle. What does that say about the type of football that you're generating here at the club, and what's it say about the squad as well, I suppose?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes these things happen. For me, it's a really good thing for us that we have goals in every area, every department, and that I include every phase of play. So whether that's crosses, whether it's counter-attacking, whether it's set plays, you need to try and have all the options available to you to score. So I think that's a good sign for that. It's also a good sign of our individual ability. We do have players that can produce memorable moments, so a really good sign.
You talked a little bit about Joe Willock already. Just how far can his talent take him in the game now that you've worked with him a couple of years, do you think? Because he's looked absolutely supreme since coming back from injury. Yeah,
I think with Joe, he's firstly the player and the person, they're always interlinked. I think he's maturing really nicely. I think he's had a difficult few years. He's moved from Arsenal to here. It's a big move. It's a lot of change in his life. But I'm seeing a real maturity in his demeanour, in the way that he approaches his training, and the approach this injury, because it's very difficult when you get a sort of a long-term injury and you have to get your head around it, you have to understand it, and then you have to do the work, and it's really unglamorous. You're on your own a lot of the time. You've got to commit to the work. You've got to be disciplined. So the fact he's come back looking so good, I think, is testament to that maturity, really.
There was a moment after the game as well on Wednesday where Kieran Trippier just pushed Tonali and Livramento forward when you were going and acknowledging the fans. What's the relationship like between those two? Because it's kind of given a kind of a father and son, like mentor and mentee vibe going on.
Yeah, not sure father and son. I don't think Trips is that old, but I think it's very, very healthy. I think there's a lot of mutual respect between both players. I think Tino looks up to Kieran naturally, and I think I'd encourage him too. His performances for the football club over the last 2 years have been truly magnificent, I think, and I think he can take a lot from Kieran's game into his own. But also I think there's a lot of respect the other way back, and I think Kieran identifies that Tino as a player with huge talent, but also real maturity again about how he's handling his situation, where he's keen to play, but he's handling himself in absolutely the right way. When he gets an opportunity, he's performed really well.
Just finally, on Arsenal, I saw an interview with Arsene Wenger over the last 24 hours, and he was describing the job that you've done at Newcastle United, described it as exceptional. I wondered how you kind of felt hearing comments like that from a Premier League legend as well as an Arsenal legend like Arsene Wenger.
Well, I haven't heard those comments, but very grateful for them. And Arsene, for me, was one of the managers that definitely inspired me. I think I've said before, I used to watch his Arsenal team, the Invincible team, and then the team after that he created was some of the best football I'd ever seen at that moment in my life, and it definitely had an impact in my methodology and how I wanted my teams to play. So can't respect him anymore.
Thanks,
Andrew?
Eddie, 10 minutes into the press conference, nobody's asked you yet about Sandro Tonali, so here I am. My first question is, it's the first time since we've seen you since that 10-month ban was introduced, so what's he doing now, and what is the plan for him over the next 10 months?
Well, he's training. Yes, he's training with us, and he started that sort of lonely. I say lonely. Obviously he's around his teammates, but we're playing so many games at the moment that it's a lot of his sessions will be individual or with small numbers. So he started that journey really into the 10 months. So it's going to be a real mental test for him to try and come through that period a better player, which is definitely our objective as coaches, is to try and help him. But it's going to be difficult for him for sure.
With the transfer window in January, will your priority be to find a replacement for Tonali, or is in some senses Joe Willock coming back? It's not a like player, obviously, but a bonus given the context of missing Tonali.
Yeah, I said previously that there's such a long way to go to January. I can't sit here now and say what I'm going to do or what we are going to do. There's so many unknowns, so it'll be closer to that time where we'll have to formulate our plans.
Lewis Hall, fantastic goal on Wednesday night. Is it your understanding that he will not be eligible for the 2 games that you've got coming up between now and the end of this calendar year? Will he be eligible for either game, do you think, or can't feature?
In the Premier League, it's his competition rule. He can't play against Chelsea. We're seeking clarification as to whether he can play against them in the Carabao Cup.
Right, okay. And Arsenal, coming up, there's a balance, I guess, for you to achieve. Weren't able to get goals against them in last season, but they've got incredible strength, young, talented players going forward. So will it be a case of you getting that balance right on tomorrow?
Well, I think they have improved. I said earlier, from last year, I think they've stepped forward and gone another level. And yes, you're right, we didn't manage to score against them last year, but I thought there were 2 really tight games and 2 really good games. So we're going to have to find ways, to cause them problems and to make life difficult for them. I always say, and I hate to repeat myself, but the crowd's involvement, our ability to get our crowd into the game, our ability to create the game that we want will be absolutely fundamental, and balance is always a key word to use in that between attacking and defending.
Final one from me, Bruno Guimaraes, he hobbled off on Wednesday. Any reason to be concerned about his injury status?
No, I hope he's fine.
Okay. Simon?
He scored 3 exceptional goals the other night. I wanted to ask you about Joe's, because he made that really difficult finish look like it was the last thing he did before just wandering off the training ground. Is that an example of his ceiling as a player?
Well, he did finish it really well, as you say, and he did look relaxed when striking it in. I'd say that was a really difficult finish. He had an area of the goal to put it in. But he's that kind of person, that kind of player. He does things that makes it look effortless. He's very graceful with his work. But yeah, top player who can score goals and big goals, and we're going to need him to for the rest of the season.
Nobody's suggesting that your squad is lacking in confidence, but what boost does it give when you make so many changes and pretty much to a man, everyone who came in performed excellently on Wednesday?
Yeah, I do think it gives everyone a boost. I think it elevates our own opinion of ourselves, and winning is the only thing that can ever do that. I think the squad now will be in a better place, and it needs to be, because we are missing some key players. So our own self-thoughts of ourselves is always important, and hopefully Wednesday's gone a long way to boosting that.
Okay. Lee Ryder, then Chris Watt.
Eddie, the way the season started and the injuries you've had, you're sitting in sixth in the table. Are you satisfied with that, or are you kind of proud of what the players achieved despite all the sort of injury setbacks?
Definitely proud of the players. I think this season has been, it's going to be tough, and we knew that at the start. So there's been no change to that thought. But when you're actually in it and trying to enjoy it and survive in it and thrive in it, it's we've been dealt some really difficult blows. I don't think it's been easy for us, whether that's cup draws, Champions League draw, injuries, suspensions. It's not been plain sailing for us, and I think we've had to be resilient and robust and deal with those challenges. And I think I have to compliment the players and how they've done that. The challenge never gets any easier; it only gets harder. So we now go into a really big week for us. We're well aware of that, but hopefully boosted by, as I say, the most recent game.
After the cup game was confirmed yesterday, I was taking a look at the fixtures in December. It looks quite brutal. Would you be pleased to get a couple of players back in that period?
Yes, we would love to get a couple of players back, and I think the challenge for us is, and this is always the case when you have injuries, is then you're exposing certain players to maybe more game time than you would really want. So it's avoiding more injuries will be the key thing for us. You're right about December. We've always sort of had that month there that it's relentless, and of course now we've qualified for the next round of the competition, Carabao Cup. There's no breather in there, so that's going to be a real test for us. But we're enjoying the games. I have to say, we're enjoying the different competitions and sort of interchanging between competitions has been a really good thing for us, and just need to get back to full strength as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and despite all the injuries, you're still going to have to upset somebody, I guess, in your midfield and attack probably in this game.
Well, I'm always upsetting people, so it's nothing. It's nothing new for me. But I think that's part of the game, and I think the players, I've got to say, have acted really, really well this season to whatever team I've selected, and then they've backed the players.
Chris Watt.
And you said the other day that Sven Botman is still trying to get the bottom of his issue. Is that any clearer, and is there a time scale in his return yet?
No, unfortunately there's not with Sven. It's I think we're going to have to wait and see the next few weeks, and then hopefully I'll be able to give you some more news. At the moment we're still waiting to find out.
And you said after the game on Wednesday that obviously Matt Todd only lasted 80 seconds, but you almost experimented to see if he could play that sort of deep midfield role. Going forward, given the loss of Sandro, will you try other players there? Are there other players you think could adapt to that position if they're going to be needed?
I think it's a specialist position, so I think it's a difficult one to necessarily experiment too much. Matt had trained in that position for, I wouldn't say a sustained, consistent period of time, but we'd looked at him in there on quite a regular basis, and he's always done well in there in training. Now I know game's very different, but we believe in his attributes to maybe have done that role really well. So he's really good on the ball, he's tactically excellent, and he's athletic. So that was a real blow to lose him. Yeah, he's a top player, and yeah, so that was a real disappointment, especially so early in the game. There was no reason for that injury to occur at that moment. It's just, again, one of those unfortunate things for him. But hopefully it's not as bad as it looks, but we'll wait and see.
And finally, just with Sven being out, obviously you're a bit depleted at centre-back, but Paul Dummett comes in, they did us very well, same with Emil Kraft. Do you see them as potential options at centre-back in the Premier League if they would be required?
I think Paul's played as a centre-back for a long time now. I know his sort of stock position has always been as a left-back, but I think under previous regimes he'd played in a back three on the left hand side quite regularly. And I think for me, with my style and how we try and play the game, for me, I've looked at him more as a centre half than a left back, and he's trained in that position now consistently for probably since my whole time here, really. So yeah, I look at him really as a centre back. With Emil, slightly different. Since he's come back from injury, we've utilised him in both positions, right back and centre half. So he has done quite a lot of training work there. So it's not something totally new to him. Again, he's played in a back three on that right hand side. So it's a slight change, but not a massive change for him.
Jordan? Sorry, I asked this on Tuesday as well, but is any decision on Jacob Murphy's shoulder yet? No, you're going to progress with that?
No, we're going to see how he is. I think he's improved quite quickly from the shoulder, so we're trying to do everything we can to avoid an operation.
And just looking ahead at the next 3 games, I know it's early doors, but does it feel like a significant part of your season, 3 games before the international break, 2 Premier League games now, obviously a Champions League one as well? Is it a key part of the season? Could it be a defining part as well?
I think we're always saying that though, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think we're always saying that the next couple of games are season defining, but I know where you're going with it. I would agree that they're pivotal games, but then I think every game's so important, every competition's so important for us. So yes, we go from Premier League to Champions League, but our eyes are fixed firmly on Arsenal at the moment, and we're really looking forward to this game.
Can the same start 11 play 2 games in 3 days, or would you need to make changes again, obviously for Arsenal and Dortmund?
Well, I think in part of our thinking was if we make changes for the game against Manchester United, that gives us the ability to play the lads in the next few games, but that's always interchangeable. I'm never going to preset my teams before we play. The players can play their way in and out of your team selection by how they perform. But I do feel now we're in a better place probably than we were going into the Wolves game, because purely from the fact that we've been able to rotate.
Cheers, mate.
You mentioned Fabian Schär feeling under the weather on Wednesday. Is he okay to start tomorrow?
Yeah, it should be okay. Let's wait and see how he is today.
And on the illness front, Louis Miley, how is he back training, back involved?
He's almost training, so he's made really good strides in the last week. I think he's got a couple more tests to do before he's fully cleared.
Would you expect him to potentially travel to Dortmund next week?
Yeah, let's wait and see how he gets on today.
Craig?
Morning, Eddie. It's obviously against Arsenal this weekend, you know, a team at the very top. There's a 5-point gap that's opened up between yourselves and that top 5. How important is it for the club's journey to be in the Champions League next season? You know, a lot's been said about FFP. If you want to spend what you want to spend, you probably do have to be a Champions League club. How important is it to maintain membership of that?
Yeah, well, it's something we'd love to do. I don't think we're necessarily looking at this stage at sort of that line. We're looking at, cliche I know, but the next game, and the next game, whatever competition we're in, trying to win it. I think these things will take care of themselves over a season. I think the players, I have to say, have done so well to recover from those 3 games that we had at the start of the season, which could have been difficult for us, but a brilliant response. And since then, I think our form's been really good, and I think we've been really consistent. So we now enter a different period, tough games to come, but I have to compliment the players on how well they're doing.
And just a quick one on Declan Rice as well. You know, in an ideal world, how much is he a player you would have loved to have had? Yeah.
No, I admire him. I think he's a top player. I think he's consistently delivered, whether that's for West Ham, England, and now he's doing it for Arsenal. And the amount of games he plays, I think, is a testament probably to his professionalism.
Thank you.
Luke and then Simon?
People don't tend to ask how a manager's doing. How are you bearing up under the strain of this workload?
That sounds like a
Therapy session for you.
Yeah, that's very, very kind. No, I mean, I said earlier, I think I'm enjoying the games. I'm enjoying the challenges that this season's bringing, the different focuses. The load is there. You know, you're the amount of games we're watching and analysing in a really quick period of time is fatiguing mentally, and not in any way trying to get anyone to feel sorry for us, but because it's what we love to do. But it's mentally it's fatiguing, but we are, I think, relishing it. Now there'll be, as you know, in a season, good moments, bad moments. It's much easier to sort of perform in the good moments, and it's when the things are difficult that you have to really dig deep and be resilient ourselves. But I think I'll speak on behalf of the coaching team. We really are loving the season so far.
I don't know whether you get caught up in this sort of thing, but I suppose us in the media and supporters are aware there's more needle now when you go into games against teams like Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, even Manchester City, because you're building up an ability to beat those teams and they see you as a threat. Are you more aware of that now, of that status within the game?
No, not really. I think we've always tried to view ourselves as competitors, and how other teams perceive you can't control. But for us, internally, we have to see ourselves that way. We're not going to Old Trafford recently on Wednesday night to just play the game. We're determined to try and win, prepared to try and win. Doesn't always pan out that way, but I think a lot is dictated by your own mindset. Then how other people perceive you, that's up to them.
Thank you.
Simon?
Yeah, after Luke's quite caring question, a bit more of an awkward one. Almiron celebrated his goal the other day by pretending to drive a car about a week after he got a driving ban. Were you aware of that, and what kind of message?
Just to flag that Miguel Almiron's currently not banned from driving.
Oh right.
Okay, next question.
He's not banned from
Not
driving.
No.
Right, so the report was wrong.
He's able to drive right now.
He can drive, right? So he appealed that.
I don't know.
Well, he was in court.
But he's able to drive right now.
All right, 'cause he's in court. Well, he wasn't in court. 'Cause he's in telling me driving.
Okay.
Right, so he's not. That's fine. Then we'll move on.
Oscar?
Eddie, just going back to Arsene Wenger, you were talking about him earlier. What was your favourite Arsenal side of his, and did he and those sides, did that inspire you in your coaching philosophy more than anything else?
Definitely did, because it coincided when Jason and I started our coaching journey. I'm just trying to think back to what era that was for them, but that they were one of the teams that we loved to watch, and I would openly admit tactically used to watch their games and see the positions of their players on the pitch and principles of play, and try and bring that into my team at the time. So I can't give you a direct sort of time where that was in the Arsenal, but certain players that I love to watch. And obviously we ended up signing Jack Wilshere as well, and Jack was a player that I'd love to watch under Arsene Wenger and his style of play and what he brought to Arsenal. So I think there's a link there, and Jack was a brilliant player for me.
Good, thank you. Louise, to finish?
Hi. So with Sven Butman, would it be right to say that you're waiting a few weeks to see if it self-heals and then deciding if you need surgery or not? Would that be fair? Or?
You wouldn't be miles away.
And the other thing, sort of talking about injuries, I mean, your style is so intense and ferocious and fantastic. How do you guard against burnout with so many games coming physically? Are you doing anything new or special to prevent that and to prevent more injuries?
Yeah, we're not training. Very little training is going on away from the games. We can't. You look at what happened on Wednesday to tomorrow. So very little training, but making sure we're tactically prepared is the best I think we can do at this moment in time. I think our style, we can always adapt our style slightly depending on the game, and we have done already this season. But I do think our fundamentals are important to keep. Intensity is part of how we play, and I think when we play at our best, it's there in our game, and I think you'd have seen that recently. So I believe we have the players physically that are able to deliver what we need them to do. I do think we've had some bizarre, unlucky situations this season that on another season wouldn't happen.
And you think you've developed the knack of slowing it down at times to kind of protect yourself? And
I'd never admit to that, no.